Bill 815 by Representative Stokes.
Thank you again, Chairman. This bill really, in essence, just goes after the fact that we don't believe in selling organs of fetuses. It also contains a provision saying that human remains should be disposed of with dignity and not medical waste.
Okay, why don't we take a few questions because I think everybody read the bill. Senator Colon?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of questions. So your bill says that the physician is responsible for cremation or for burying the.
Yes, it puts the burden on Deanna Wallace with Louisiana Right to Life. It places the burden on the physician who is performing the abortion, and therefore with the clinic that is performing the abortion, and in order to dispose of the body either through cremation or through burial.
Okay, so that expense will be on the physician as well.
Yes, the clinic is the one who is responsible for that expense.
Okay, so the parent, the mother wouldn't be, or the
No.
father wouldn't be.
No, ma'am.
What's current law on that?
Currently, aborted children are treated as medical waste, and so the clinic already contracts with the medical waste company to dispose of the bodies.
Is there any stage, at every stage?
Well, currently, Louisiana law prohibits abortion after 20 weeks, so that's the highest that they would be disposing of in the first place. I know that whenever it comes to miscarriage law, after 20 weeks, it is required to bury or cremate that child in accordance with state law. So we just want to apply this.
But at miscarriage, the parent would be, or the parents would be responsible?
Yes.
Notified, right?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Claytor?
Is this any different than what we did with Gaddy already?
We believe it's complementary to Gaddy's bill. So his deals with strictly criminal code, and this goes into our abortion code instead of into the criminal code. But we believe that they do complement one another, and they kind of work to do the civil and criminal side of making sure that this is not happening in our abortion clinics.
Thank you.
Senator Luna?
Why are we passing duplicate bills that are going to be potentially conflicting one another in some fashion or form and muddying this up? Is there a reason? I mean, I thought Senator Gaddy's bill covered all of these issues. Am I missing something here?
Well, as far as Senator Gaddy's bill is concerned, we were not aware of that bill whenever we were approached by Stokes regarding whether or not this could be something we could work on.
And that's fair enough. I appreciate that.
But we also believe they're complementary, not contradictory. We believe they work together to make sure this doesn't happen.
What's different about it?
Again, Senator Gaddy's bill is dealing with a criminal provision. This is a civil provision. I believe that there are criminal sanctions mentioned as well, but those we don't believe would be contradictory to Senator Gaddy's bill. We believe that they could just be additional. As a lawyer, that you can be charged with many crimes for the same action, depending on how that works. You can do lesser included offenses, and we believe that would be how this would work whenever it comes to criminal provisions. But we also have the civil provisions and penalties that are already provided in our law for abortion-related offenses.
And so we don't go as far as.
Right, ours doesn't go as far as his
Right.
does.
That's my point. I mean,
Right.
I don't know anything that this one does. His doesn't already cover. I mean, it's,
Well, and look, I'm in the same position that at the time that this bill was filed, I wasn't aware of Senator Gaddy's bill. Now, in honesty, I don't think it's bad for us to have two options out there, because perhaps we don't want it to be criminal. Perhaps the way that it is framed in here, people would prefer. I don't know, but it might be preferable to have two different ways to solve the problem that we're trying to solve.
I can tell you in the realm of who would interpret these laws, that's never preferable. I mean, you want to have a pronunciation of the law, and you want to be able to not have to determine if one conflicts with the other or something else.
And I don't necessarily mean that they both have to become law. I mean that for us to choose, maybe if in fact, because I don't know at this point, but if in fact they are identical, then they're not. And I'll have to.
Tell me
but-
what the difference is.
Yeah, what does this bill do that Gaddy's doesn't do?
Sure. Do you want to answer this?
Yes, so there are two things that it does. First, this provides for civil penalties, not just criminal penalties. Gaddy's bill deals specifically with criminal penalties only. And secondly, this bill goes a step further in regards to how we do treat the children's bodies after abortion by requiring the cremation or burial. Senator Gaddy's bill simply deals with the profit or transfer or sale or donation. It doesn't touch what should happen to those children's body after that procedure.
I thought
So is
maybe-
is it
maybe
possible?
I'm mistaken
Could
about
I-
that, but I thought it did. I thought his bill did. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
No, it was strictly a criminal prohibition on the sale, profit from, transfer. He used a lot of different words to make sure that they were all covered, but it had nothing to do with the burial or cremation aspect that this bill includes. And we would be, because of the criminal penalty provision, we would be okay with maybe considering taking the specific criminal penalty out of this bill and allowing his to stand and keeping our civil penalties, because as you know, sometimes it's preferable to have that civil penalty whenever an attorney general is looking at this, or the district attorney, what they feel that they can actually prove in court in order to make sure that this is taken care of.
And Ben Clapper, Louisiana Right to Life, and that's been our experience with jurisprudence in this area, is that the civil penalties are more applicable. Senator Gaddy moved forward on the criminal penalties, which we would not have been inclined to put in, so therefore it's a different bill on that standpoint. And then the provision that Deanna was mentioning on the burial and cremation so that they're not treated as medical waste is an entirely different portion of this bill than wasn't in his.
Well, maybe if that's the difference, then maybe the solution is what you suggested, to take out the criminal penalties under this, so there's no chance of it conflicting, and then there'll be, because often we have statutes, one criminal, one civil, that deal with the same issue, and that would make it much easier. So maybe if we could offer up,
And
I
that's
can offer
fine
up
for
an
me.
amendment to do that, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. We can well do that. Yes.
Yes.
We'll start working on that, Senator. While Senator Brown asks a question, if that's okay with you. Senator Brown?
Tell me, when you say medical waste, you say currently when an abortion is performed, it's considered medical waste. And if this bill passes, what then will the abortion doctor be required to do?
In this case, instead of contracting with the medical waste company, they would be contracting with either a funeral home or a crematorium to provide for the disposition of the child's body.
And I want to just say what I kind of envision for this isn't a cremation or necessarily burial for every individual fetus. What I see is that there would be done almost like it may be a grave of the unborn, or that it was
Mass
Mm-hmm.
more
burial?
together, that it was more
together,
or else
Like
it-
get the funeral home to come on a Friday and pick up everything and bury it?
Yes, and there's
Yeah.
nothing in the bill that would prohibit that.
So when you say that, and that's where I was going, when you say that, the cost is still going to increase drastically.
I don't know about drastically. It will most likely increase.
We
as
don't know yet.
opposed-
We don't know
we
yet
don't
whether
know.
it's drastic or not drastic. We don't know yet. But when we think of a funeral, even if we think of an infant's funeral, there is a cost.
Right, and we're not requiring that they do a full funeral, simply that they be buried. And again, there's nothing prohibiting
But when
them
you,
from doing
my first question
multiple
said,
burial.
I asked what's the difference? When you contract a funeral home has rules and regs to abide by as well.
Mm-hmm.
And certain things, they will not do it as simple as what you just explained. They are going to have to abide by their rules and provide a proper burial, which entails a cost. That cost will be passed on to the parent. I'm sorry, to the in this case, to the doctor. The doctor will in turn pass the cost on. So the ultimate goal, which leads to the question, is the ultimate goal here to increase the cost so we can limit abortion again?
That I can tell you that that's certainly for me did not come into the picture. I just felt,
It's
you
a
know,
reality,
there was
though.
I do understand that. I do. And I do. In one of an original version of it, there was a provision against donating the organs. And I started a discussion with them about what's a higher use to donate or as medical waste. And I got kind of concerned about that being in there. And that's how we kind of got to this, because of the dignity of human life. And I felt comfortable with having it in there. I would like to think that even probably some not-for-profit or something would probably take this over and have it be something that they do. I understand your concerns, but I didn't want you to think that in any way, shape, or form that I was just trying to choke out people's rights at all.
Let me ask you another question. What about from a practical standpoint, you have, assuming this bill was to pass, and the doctors would be required to then contract, as you said, with a funeral home. And in their area, the funeral homes of choice say, I don't want to do that. We deal with real burials. And they have no way of disposing according to what your bill would do. How do they handle it? What's the alternative then?
And are there any abortion facilities in areas where, I mean, and it could potentially be an issue anywhere, but are there any in a very small community where it might not be?
No, all of the.
That's not my question.
No, I understand, but I
My
just wanted to
question is,
clarify that.
how is it, what's the alternative when you have funeral homes who have the discretion and say, we don't do that? That's not a service we provide.
That would be at their discretion, and there's nothing that we could do to force them to do so, but there are,
My question to you, listen to my question.
I was trying.
What is the alternative that the doctor has when funeral home ABCD in his respective area says, Doc, we can't help you with that. We wish we could, but we don't do that.
Right, so what I was trying to say was that they would have to look outside of their immediate area, as they do now with medical contracting companies, because not all medical contracting companies want to deal with abortion facilities either.
Which as
So,
well increases the cost.
I'm not sure how that would increase the cost.
If a medical,
as-
if a funeral home, I'm using your language. If a funeral home, let's take where I'm from. I'm Napoleonville. If a funeral home from New Orleans or Mississippi has to come to Napoleonville as opposed to a funeral home that's about 3 football fields away from where I grew up, and the rest of the funeral homes in the area, the costs will go up. When there's more costs involved with providing a service, the cost is passed on to the consumer.
Right, and what I'm trying to say
But
is
what
that
you're
that's
saying is,
already the
let me
reality
go back.
here.
So what you're saying is that there is no alternative if this bill was to pass in its
No,
current
not at
form.
all. I'm not saying there's no alternative. I'm saying there are thousands of alternatives across the state where they could go if they are not able to find one within their immediate vicinity.
So find
as
one
of-
by whatever means necessary is what you're saying.
I'm saying that I don't believe that there are a lack of options for them to pursue, and that already with the medical waste companies, they have to contract not always with a local
You're going back to
provider.
medical waste companies, but what your bill says, if it passes, it has to be a funeral home, not.
Right. I'm trying to draw an analogy between what's already in the law and whether or not they are able to contract with local providers as is in the law,
Right.
as opposed to what will happen later. So I think it's the same situation regardless of who they're contracting with. There are always going to be providers who don't want to get involved with this, but they are able to still find those in other areas.
So you do agree and realize that this could be a huge hurdle for doctors.
I don't believe it will be a huge hurdle. I believe that there are going to be, again, some providers that don't want to get involved with this, but it's, again, same situation as in they are currently dealing with contracting with other organizations for medical waste. I don't think it'll change at all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, and I think the chair's going to put another 10, 15 minutes on this bill and get the rest of them done. Senator Claytor, I think you've been kind of doing some homework on looking at both bills, the Gaddy bill and the Stokes bill.
I have, and I'm concerned when I read them side to side in their current form, as it relates to buy, sell, receive, and otherwise transfer, as I'm going from Gaddy's Senate Bill number 33 that is awaiting the governor's signature. I would, I know it's late in the session and we got stuff going on, but I would suggest that you consider pulling back for a week and laying them side by side so that the amendment that's up, I think, just takes the criminal penalty out, which is what staff was asked to do, but I still think there's some conflict between the two. So would you consider that? Have you done that? Have you laid them down?
Have you laid the two side by side and see?
I have not.
Again,
I-
Senator Gaddy's bill strictly deals with criminal penalties. If we
Yeah,
take
and
those
then it
criminal
has
penalties
criminal
out, they
penalties
can't
on-
conflict.
But it has criminal penalties for those that receive criminal waste. So so the transporters that receive the waste will be subject to criminal penalties. Those that transfer it, those that put it in the ground, will be subject to criminal penalties as well. The way that I'm reading the bill, so I'm just suggesting that you might want to lay them side by side and make sure that they're not conflicting. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to. That's my suggestion as a member of the committee.
Reverend Stokes, what's your thoughts as the committee ponders this issue?
I have two people to consult, but
May I ask or I'm not sure I'm allowed to ask the questions, but is your intention to make the bill the same? Is that how I understand it?
it would be to figure out what's the same and eliminate and get down to what we would actually need on top of Gaddy's bill, right?
To make them compatible.
Right, that's what I think.
From Senator Luno's original thought process.
Right, I agree.
I mean, these lawyers are basically saying, we're not against your bill.
Right.
But you should take the two bills side by side and make sure it's not conflicting law.
Right.
So is,
I am, I believe I have everybody's, I'm in favor of doing that, so I have no problem with that. I'll get staff on it, we'll compare them, and we'll make sure that what needs to happen in this bill to accomplish the whole package happens, and that there's no duplication or confusion between the two. That's the only right thing to do. I'm fine with that.
Senator Claytor?
Thank you.
You bet.
I think the board is clear. I think everybody understands their role for next week, and we'll go from there.
Thank you so
Senator
much.
Claytor, could you get in the chair? I have a few bills, if you don't